Just a few weeks ago, we all heard about the tragic news here in Hollywood of the unaliving of Hollywood legend and director Rob Reiner and his wife, and allegedly was unalived by their son, Nick Reiner. And it is important to note that Nick Reiner has been arrested and he is in custody. And in a few days from now, sometime soon, he's going to make a plea. What that plea will be, many suspect that his plea would be not guilty by reason of insanity, but we don't know yet. But first, let's look at his indictment. As you see here, the district attorney's office, remember I always tell you when it comes to criminal cases, the only entity that can prosecute you on behalf of your state would be your district attorney's office. These cannot be brought by private citizens. This is your district attorney's office, and it says here, the people of the state of California. In this formal indictment here, as you see, and we all see the facts here on December 14th, 2025. He was arrested for the crime of murder. And murder, as is defined in in California Penal Code 187. California Penal Code 187 states that in California, obviously prohibits murder. And what is murder under this code? Murder is the unlawful killing of a human being or a fetus with malice aforethought. And what exactly is malice aforethought? Well, basically, malice aforethought is defined in the following penal code, 188. And it says here, for the purposes of section 187, which is the murder statute, malice may be expressed or implied. Malice can be manifested in a deliberate intention to unlawfully take away the life of a fellow creature. That's express malice. Now, malice can be implied when there's no considerable provocation or when there's circumstances attending the killing show an abandoned or malignant heart. And that's when you're doing something that is inherently dangerous, setting off bombs somewhere in a neighborhood, and you didn't intend maybe to have expressed malice to actually hurt someone, but it would just be understood that it's a dangerous situation, inherently dangerous to do certain things in a certain surrounding, in a certain circumstance. So that's malice. Now, if you look here, so if you have, that's what murder is as classified in California. It's unlawful killing of a human being or a fetus with malice aforethought, and malice can be expressed or implied. Now, if you look at the, go back to the actual indictment, it says here that he did, and these are all allegations because it hasn't been proven yet, but it says here that it was malice aforethought with the murder of Michelle Reiner, a human being. And also in count 2, it's going to be the same thing. He was arrested for murder with malice aforethought of Robert Reiner, who's also a human being. And I want you to pay close attention here to the one of the things that's interesting here in California, because the district attorney's office in this indictment, they included these two notices right here. The above offense is a serious felony within the meaning of Penal Code Section 1192.7c, and a violent felony under Penal Code 667.5. And that is important. The reason why the district attorney's office put this in there is because in California, if you're convicted of a serious felony, and those two aforementioned statutes, they have a list of what those felonies are. I'll let you look up those lists, but obviously murder would be a serious felony, as well as a violent felony. And the reason why that's important is because if you are convicted of a serious and or a violent felony in California, if convicted, then we have another penal code here that California goes by in terms of your incarceration time. Now, California Penal Code Section 2933.1, it states that notwithstanding, the first subsection, notwithstanding any other law, any person who is convicted of a felony offense that is listed in those aforementioned sections, 7.5 shall accrue no more than 15% of work time credit. Now, that basically means 15% is your work time credit. That's the time you can use to get early parole, which means you have to serve 85% of your sentence. For example, if someone is convicted of a serious felony here in California, if it's serious under this actual code, and actually murder will be one of them, but any of the other serious or violent felonies, and you're sentenced to say 10 years. 10 years, that's what the judge sentenced you to, 10 years in our California correctional system, then you would have to do 8.5 years because you cannot accrue any more than 15% of good credit time pursuant to this California statute. So that's what we have here, and that's why the district attorney's office put this in, like, hey, if we get a conviction of Nick Reiner for these 2 murders, if there's a conviction, then please note, pursuant to the statute, 85% has to be done. No exceptions, absent some other state law or anything else. Now, what's coming into play here, as you see in the media, what's interesting about this case is that a lot of people are saying that Nick Reiner had mental health issues. If you look at this article here, it says Nick Reiner's medication for schizophrenia was adjusted before his parents' killing. And who said this? It just says sources say. So obviously, you know, in court that would be hearsay, but there's ways and exceptions to get around hearsay rules, so they may be able to get this in. I'm sure his attorney would obviously bargain for this, but he says here he was diagnosed with schizophrenia several years ago and was treated with medication. Now, here's the thing. I need you to understand something, that when it comes to mental health and mental illnesses, mental illness, regardless if you want to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, that's another issue. But mental illnesses in and of itself will not excuse you of a crime. That is not the litmus test under California Penal Code. California Penal Code is very, very clear where it says the California law states that conditions of a personality or adjustment disorder or a seizure disorder or any addiction to or abuse of intoxicating substances cannot be the sole basis of an insanity claim. California doesn't, they go further and say, okay, fine, you have a mental health illness, but that will not excuse you. You're gonna have to show something else in addition to. So it says people with these conditions must show something in addition to their mental illness, such as hallucinations or delusions, before their insanity defense can succeed. Here's the thing. Okay, so it's noted here that he has schizophrenia, right? That's what's being reported in the media outlets. We won't know that obviously until you go into a trial and you have certain physicians go up there. So, and they would have to have expert testimony, but nonetheless, you would have to show, okay, first he has his mental, if they're going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. This is what it's all about. And if that's the case, then he would have to show that two things. Number one, he has his mental illness at the time the crime was committed. That's one thing you have to show. And you can show that by his treatment law, his medical records, etc. But also you have to go further. You have to show that the mental illness prevented you from understanding the nature and the quality of your actions at the time of their ability to distinguish right from wrong. It's not just having a mental illness itself. You have to go further. You have to say, my mental illness, I had it at the time of the crime, but also this mental illness prevented me from knowing right from wrong. I was so far gone, my capacity was so much diminished, I cannot form the mens rea. That's a legal term we use for the mind, the state of mind at the time to show intent, obviously, because I just showed you what the actual murder code is here in California. You have to show intent. Was you intentionally kill someone unlawfully? You have to show intent of some sort through malice, or you have to show some sort of malice aforethought through implied malice. Even with that being said, you're going to have to show something in addition to the actual mental illness. And they're just going to have to show that whatever evidence they have, whatever they present, is going to have to show he, P being Nick, the defendant here, who has been alleged of murdering both of his parents. They're going to show that at the time he had this disorder, and this disorder prevented him from knowing the nature of what he was actually doing. He could not form the mens rea to know right from wrong. He could not know what he was doing was wrong. He thought that this was just what it was. He did not form the mens rea. And just so you know, even if the court grants him this, it is important to know that even if you succeed on a not guilty by reason of insanity plea, that you must prove by preponderance of the evidence, which means more likely than not that you have this mental illness and you do not understand the nature. You don't get to go home free. It says here, even if you do succeed on this, it doesn't allow the person to go free. Instead, the defendants must live in a state hospital and undergo treatment, and typically you stay there for the same amount of time that you would have had you been incarcerated. And sometimes it could be extended, and sometimes it could be less, depending on what all of the factors are. But it's not like a get out of jail free card, if you will. No, you have to actually undergo treatment if that is the case. And also, it's important to know that the way this is going to work, if this is a trial, and he does have his own private attorney, if my understanding is correct, so they may go to trial or they may take a plea deal. We won't know until in a few days here where he actually makes his plea. But what tends to happen is you have to actually have a murder trial, or a double murder trial in this case, right? They're gonna have to have both trials, the trial on both murders, and determine if he is guilty of said murders. If that is the case, then you go to a sanity hearing thereafter. If they find him guilty, then they go to a sanity hearing. If he's found not guilty, there's no need. But if he is found guilty, then you go to a sanity hearing, and then they will determine what his sanity is, if he is indeed insane, or if he did not know the nature of what he did was right, was wrong. This case is going to be very, very interesting. We have to follow it, but obviously, we all feel remorse, and we also send our condolences out to the Reiner family, as he was well known and well respected by many, not only in Hollywood, but around the world. So I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think, from what you've been hearing, do you think that this defendant, Nick Reiner, is going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity? You think he's going to fight that case? Or do you even think that this is something that should even go to a trial? Let me know your thoughts. Put it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Like, comment, share, subscribe. It's your brother, Attorney Jeff.